Okay, it is now 6 o'clock. Oops, 6:01 p.m. Friday, March 25. And we're here again for another live. And I'm waiting so it is working. We're now public. And I do have a special guest. She is waiting in the outer studio. We will bring her in very shortly. But I'm so happy to be back. Yes, hi, Nicola. Good to have you. I am amazed at Hi Tosh. I am so impressed by so many of you who thought that my guest today, as a feature on the Connection Live, is quite a departure from what is the norm. And I'm so happy that so many of you have accepted and received the agenda, the program, with such enthusiasm. And very shortly, as I mentioned, I will, as soon as we're going up to 13, let us see what happens in the next minute or so. I'm happy to be back. Sorry that we missed a week, but I was in London. I'm going to talk to the Senator about that just now. I was there attending the Commonwealth Parliamentary CPA, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, right, seminar, 70th Westminster seminar. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But one of the important activities that I did before I bring on Senator Campbell Rodriques is, as you all know, my sister passed over a year or so ago during the lockdown in the UK, and I wasn't able to attend her funeral, and it has really been bothering me. It has really been a sad few months. In fact, it's 18 months, 15 months since she passed and was buried. And I really didn't feel that there was closure. In fact, the way she passed was quite a shock to me. I didn't know that my sister, who I know loved me so much and I love her dearly, had cancer, and she suffered through it. In fact, even my nephews, and I have 4 of them, didn't know the full extent of her illness. Her other relatives didn't know, and she was quite clear because some of her friends knew, and they got firm instructions not to tell me because she didn't want me to worry. So that's my sister for you. She passed after going through some suffering, I was told. And even though I spoke to her often, I didn't know that she had gone through 2 operations. She had removed her breasts. I didn't know all of that. So I went and visited her as I arrived in London and spent some quiet moments with her. And I'm sure she was able to feel and to see and to understand. And I left some flowers there, and every chance I get, I'm going to go back to visit my sister, Petulia Paulwell. She was married twice, but she retained the Paulwell to the end. All right, so that's it for me. I left London actually and passed through the US very quickly on my way back home. So I'm happy to be back home. The first thing I had as I got back home for lunch, 2 tasty patty, and I now have, waiting until this program is over, my stew peas and rice with pig's tail for dinner. Yeah, man, I'm tired of the fish and chips and no, actually, I only had fish and chips once, but I had good meals over there. But I feel for my Jamaican food. So I'm so happy to be back home. You know, when I leave Jamaica and I spend more than 3 days abroad, I get homesick. So I had to go to the theater, I had to go to a football game, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So I'm going to now bring into the studio my special guest. Let me see now. Oh, Dane. Dane, you're back in Ghana. Boy, Dane, we had a very interesting discussion. I'm so happy that you were able to share your life experience so far, and we wish you well. We know that you're going to become a doctor soon. Yes, good evening to everybody, all of you who have joined. Yes, Taisha, good evening to you as well. All right, let me bring in my special guest. I'm to, ah, is that Senator
How are
Natalie
you?
Campbell Rodriques?
Yes, it's me joining
Are
you
you
this
hearing
evening.
me clearly?
Hearing you quite clearly, seeing you as well.
So
Good
tell me
evening to
now.
all your guests.
Thank you very much. They're delighted to have you on. You know, every week when I speak, I always address the comrades, the friends, and I also have some laborites who track me. You know, so I have to recognize them as well. So my peeps
Because
know.
we're one Jamaica, one Jamaica.
Ah, well, that's the best way to start our program. But I see you're in your car. Why are you in a car?
Yes, because I'm just leaving Senate. Just leaving Senate, and so I have to just make sure I got out of downtown. So I'm in the car, but I'm good.
Okay. How was Senate today?
It was long, but it was good as usual. We did manage to go through the appropriations bill and, the
Yes.
debates that go around that every year. But it was a good session. It was a lot of deliberations and,
Yes.
um, no hostility or anything like that. So it was a good day. It was a
Wonderful,
good day.
wonderful.
Good day.
I have to say to my listeners and viewers, I really met you properly for the first time when we
Yes,
attended the CPA conference in London. I had
exactly.
heard your name before, but it was associated with my very good political friend, Natalie Nita. And
Yes, yes,
it's the nature, probably it's just humankind, because Natalie and I are so tight. When I hear that
right.
another Natalie was going to run against my Natalie, man, I tell you, it wasn't very pleasant.
But that's life, because we're tribal by nature.
We're tribal
We're
by
tribal by
nature.
nature. Yes,
Yeah,
and we're African descendants where, tribes are a part of it, and we don't have it
yes.
in Jamaica, but we've formed our own tribes in
So,
terms of
so, so how
NPJLB.
refreshing it was for me, having had this, negative, to engage you in conversation. Well, we were in a foreign land, so we
Yes,
automatically and instinctively start taking care of each other. So you were watching
absolutely.
my back, and I was watching your back,
Yes,
and it wasn't just the two of us
absolutely.
alone. Just for full disclosure, we had MP Philip Henriquez who was there,
Right,
and we had the deputy clerk of our parliament. And
absolutely, Mr.
when we
Luton.
Jamaicans are outside of Jamaica, we really are
We're
united.
we're just Jamaicans.
We're just Jamaican. And
Absolutely.
well, for me, having those discussions with you
Mhm.
were really very eye-opening and very helpful, and very, I believe it helps me to understand my own role as a Jamaican.
Right.
I have been touting of late, and people say, boy, I'm on this road to Damascus. But I was never, ever the ultimate tribalist.
Right.
Because once I got into the politics and started to meet people, labor rights, I realized that people are people. And that unlike the past when I thought that if you're a labor right, you must be terrible. And if you're a
Hmm.
comrade, you must be God sent, you know?
Right.
But it's the nature of the politics. But
That it
tell
is.
us how you have found the politics so far, by the way.
So basically, I've grown up in the politics to a large extent because my family has always been involved in politics in so in the seat that's held by Bobby Montague, which was Terry Gillett.
I'm sorry, you just broke up a little bit,
Is
Natalie. Natalie, you just broke a
where
little bit.
yes, I don't know what happened there, but I'm saying, my family is from that seat that's now held by MP Montague, Bobby Montague. It was Terry
Yeah.
Gillett back in the days. And so I've always been surrounded by it because I have a family that just loves politics. And I don't mean they're veranda politicians, they get actively involved. And so it has
Yeah.
always been a part of me. I think I personally got engaged in politics myself in high school when I ran for student council president.
Wow.
So because at Woolman's to be student council president, you have to campaign. At the time, you used to have to campaign to run for president, and that was
Did
my
you
first
win?
time, and I think I got hooked. It's like a drug.
Did you
Yes,
win?
I won. I was student council president. Yes, I won. Yes, man. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. And so I just fell in love with the whole
Yeah.
idea, and I think I'm a development person at heart. So I have always been interested in development, and there are different ways to do it, and my way is through politics. So I'm enjoying it. It's what I
Yeah.
want to do. And I'm blessed to be able to do what I want to do in a country that I want to do it.
Well,
So I'm loving
what
it.
have you been doing in the politics so far?
So I was a councillor, elected councillor in Portmore. When George Lee was mayor, I was in that first set of councillors in Portmore. So that is what I've done in the politics. I was a member of Young Jamaica and then Young Leaders Council, which is a precursor to G2K. I was an active member of that as well.
Yeah.
Migrated for a few years, as a lot of people know, and then I came back in 2019, ran against Natalie Nita, which we know is a strong candidate and a strong PNP seat. I lost, but I have been, given the privilege to serve as a senator, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
This is one of those things where you learn on the job, because no matter how you're involved in politics, as you know, going in the Senate is a whole new ball game, a whole new learning curve.
Yes. Well,
So I'm
and
loving it, enjoying it.
you and I
Maybe
shared some thoughts while we were overseas, and we share
right.
them also with Philip Henriquez. And the thoughts
Yes,
relate to how we as Jamaicans, so we're not PNP yet, we're not JLP yet, we're just Jamaicans.
Jamaicans.
How can we identify those overwhelming things that we ought to prioritize as Jamaicans and just pursue them without the political blinkers? And that is what I'm interested in, because I'm doing these series of articles after 60 years of Jamaica being independent, and also my 30th year in public life. And I believe we can't leave the country the way that we found it or the way it is today. And it is for us who are now involved in the process to change it. How can we
Absolutely.
agree on some things? There are certain things we're not going to agree on. We know that. You're a
Absolutely not.
JLP, I'm a PNP. There are certain philosophical
Absolutely not.
things that separate us.
Right.
But what are
Right.
those things that we can agree on and pursue them?
Well, I think firstly, if you notice, when it comes on to sports and music, we're
Yeah.
united. There's no JLP and PNP in sports and music in Jamaica.
Yes,
When
yes,
Usain Bolt used to run down that field, and when Shelley and Fraser is down that field, nobody cares about um, JLP or PNP. So those are some uniting issues. Those are some issues
yes,
that we can always bond around. But I think more than anything else, as we discussed, our system of governance is one that um, requires confrontation. And
yeah,
we have to ask ourselves, how can we operate either differently within this system, or is it that we need to change it? It is a discussion that we need to have in a very open and honest way, because we are too young of a nation, I think, to be so divided over something that really and truly should not be as divisive as it is. I'm not sure if I agree with our confrontational way of politics. And I think if
yeah,
we can change and adjust that, because Philip, I will tell you, my perception of who you were before I met you in London, I said this to you, is completely different. Completely different. You know?
yeah,
So I mean, some people assume that all of us get together and we're all friends. We're not all friends. Many persons are friends, but we're not all friends. We don't even get a chance. We don't even have that system where we get to know each other enough. Because I think also, if we knew each other enough, we would realize, oh, wow, this isn't necessary, is it?
yeah.
Is there, we have to ask ourselves the question, is there a better way to do this? Because at the end of the day, Jamaica matters most. And
There's
so we
this
always
level,
have to keep that
yeah,
in mind.
there's this level of coarseness, you know. lack of civility that has characterized the way we perform, because I believe it's a performance most of the time, especially in our parliament and on in the public space. How can we disagree agreeably? How can we debate each other? Because yes, there are differences and these differences will persist. But for
Yes.
example, you and I talked about getting rid of the monarchy, and it's no disrespect to
Right.
the Queen,
None.
but let me hear your views about that.
Well, we have to do what is best for Jamaica. She needs us to be our best and honest selves. And it is that time, just as though when children are growing up, there comes a point when they have to leave home and they have to manage on their own. It's the same thing. We have been in independence since 1962. We really shouldn't have the monarchy still with us. And so I support the call by both parties for us to become a republic. And as you can see, steps are now going to be taken to advance that cause. Um, you know, the truth about it is that if we continue also outside of becoming a republic, we have to then ask ourselves, does a system where one person takes all, as in one entity, sorry, takes all, and the other spends 5 years trying to see how they can get the other person out so that they can take over? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work best for us as a country. I don't think so.
Yes, and we're not saying that we're not Democrats, because you're a Democrat,
Absolutely not. Oh
right?
no, I'm an advocate of democracy for sure. But
Right.
what I'm saying is other countries have found other ways to create a hybrid system that works for them. We need to have that discussion, but for the discussion to be valuable, it can't be held within the context where any one side has the conversation with the view to pleasing what they think people want to hear. It has to be honest.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. That is so important. One of the problems I see, Natalie, is that we do say that we consult and we are in dialogue with each other, but I don't think it is meaningful enough. And there's always this suspicion that yes, as government, we want to keep opposition out, and as opposition, we want to get into government. And both
Yes,
sides never really end up trusting each other. How are we going
it's
to
hard.
get that? Yes.
It's hard with the current system of governance. It's really hard. And
Yeah.
people think, oh, let's just do it. It's not that easy. We're human beings. And if the
Yes.
system is set up where one person, one entity takes all and the other gets nothing or is not involved in any way. So when I say get nothing, I don't mean a physical thing. I mean that responsibility to lead and to set direction for 5 years. You will always have this problem. A lot
But
of our problems are stemmed
yeah,
from that system.
yeah. Well, you have introduced an item, and it is very laudable of you to do so, because when you're in government, you really don't think about the opposition and sharing power. But what you have delved on is about sharing power, no?
Yes, and I don't say I have the solution because
Yes.
even though I taught politics at the open campus at UWI and we looked at different systems of government, I can't say I have the solution. What I'm sure of is that we have to find a way for there to be greater inclusion in processes and greater trust um,
Yes.
among the different players in order to make this happen. And I am personally, and this is a personal opinion, I do believe that a sharing of power is something that we should consider
Yes.
because it may be what Jamaica needs at this point. We can look at the United States, we can look at the UK. These nations have been self-governing for hundreds of years. We have not even reached 70 years.
Yes.
So we need a little more time to grow and to develop some of those systems and ideals before we can do exactly what they are doing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? While I believe it must be fundamentally democratic,
Yeah.
but we have to sit and have that conversation.
I was watching, and you've discovered a side of me that you've mentioned, that I'm much more quieter than you thought I would be. But
Absolutely.
in the discussion we've had, which included Philip Henriquez, I was
Right.
listening to both of you, because both of you are on the same side, but there were instances when you differ in
Yes.
meaningful ways in those
Yes.
discussions we were having as to how to strengthen our democracy.
Yes.
Why we
But you
can't
know
have
what's the
that in
beauty?
Jamaica? Huh?
But you know what is the beauty? I
Yes.
have been in the Jamaica Labour Party since I was a teenager. And the Jamaica Labour Party of today, we get to have those
You
disagreements.
do? No,
We get to
really?
have those.
No,
Yes.
really?
Yes, then you sat there and
Huh.
heard me and Philip. We didn't even know you were listening to us. But that's what is being fostered because that's the way to grow. When you look at MP Cuthbert on social media talking about abortion, and you don't see anybody censoring her because
Yes.
this is the way we grow. So it is not easy, and I'm not saying that you're going to be jumping over the moon, but you have to be able to have those conversations in order to get to a better place,
Can I
because
tell
at
you
the
a
end of the
secret?
day,
Can I tell you a secret?
sure, tell me the
That
secrets.
has been always our situation in the People's National Party.
I
We
don't believe
argue,
it.
we argue and fight over these ideas because that's the nature of our party. But
It
that's
is.
good.
No, but you're not seeing it out on social media and stuff, while you will see us doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yes,
you have that greater, so it's not just internal anymore. It is also
yeah,
just being more acceptable that people are different. And I think why this is happening is because in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s, the PNP, for example, was centered around a philosophy of socialism,
yes,
and the JP was centered around capitalism. There was
yes,
a fine line in the sand. The Jamaica Labour Party was more conservative, that kind of a thing, right?
right.
But when you look at it in 2022, where is that philosophy? Which party can say it truly has such a distinct philosophy from the other one? That doesn't exist anymore. Not the way it existed in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s. So now we're both parties trying to grapple with exactly who are we as parties. We have different ways of operating that are, clearly demarcated. But
Right.
that philosophy isn't as clear in either parties anymore. And I think that has given us a little bit of freedom to have wider discussions because you're not limited by a philosophy that you must follow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, me going always believe that my party and our philosophy, and I am a democratic socialist, right? I agree that we have to have this mixed economy, and in that regard, we have to support the private sector to be one of the engines of growth. But
Right.
but Natalie, there
Uh-huh.
are some fundamental things like education. Why can't
Absolutely.
we just agree on how to get education right? Whether it's free
Because
yes,
Sorry, but the reason we can't do that is, let us say now the GLP, my party is in power now, and let us say we get it right. Some people in your party are going to feel that that puts back the PNP's chances of winning. So it's very hard in the same confrontational system I've been talking about. I'm going to be like a scratch record about it. It's going to be difficult to have that unity and to have that coalition because it's winner takes all. So if
yes,
your party supports what we are doing, then it's going to look bad on your party. That's the thought process. That's not necessarily what it is, but that's what
yes.
it is. And if the situation were reversed, it would be the same thought process.
Well, my view now, having seen so many Jamaicans taking themselves out of the process, seeing
Right.
less than just about 40% of our people going to even bother to vote, I believe striving for unity can be a political plus for the party
It
who's
can
seen.
be.
And this is
It
where the
can be.
opposition, I believe, can in fact garner a lot more support than previously.
Yes.
I get the Jamaican people to see that we are first and foremost patriotic. We love the country and we want to see Jamaica develop. And so if there are good policies that are being pursued, we should support while
Right.
maintaining our ability to criticize where policies are not correct.
Absolutely. And I think if and I'm speaking generally now, I'm not speaking about the opposition, I'm speaking about oppositions. If
Right.
that recognition, and I've spoken in the Senate about this more than once, I've said, let us unite around issues. Jamaicans would welcome that. We have a situation right now where it is the middle class that is not participating. The wealthy, the
Right.
very wealthy, and the poor are the majority of who participates actively in Jamaican politics. The middle
Right.
class is just sitting there. I often refer to the middle class as veranda politicians. What
Yeah.
we need is for this group to get involved, to hold more of us accountable, and to not just have a conversation and say, boy, no better, nobody is better than anybody else, and as such, I'm not going to get involved. Then we won't see the change that we need to see if you won't get involved.
Yeah.
Because when you have more than 60% or just around 60% not participating, your democracy is actually a little bit threatened, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a little bit threatened.
Um, I'm watching some of the comments as we continue our dialogue. I know you can't see them because you're driving. Um,
Right.
and just to be clear, I am not supporting unbridled capitalism. I believe that there has to be rules to protect our consumers, rules to that govern how the market operates. But I wanted to get back to education because people believe that education, crime and violence, those are things that the state must guarantee. Good education, guarantee public safety. And those are some of the major areas where we are floundering, we are not being successful.
Mhm.
And what I'm seeing here are comments from people to say, yes, why can't we just say that in relation to education? For example, we just had the Patterson report.
Mhm.
Are there any criticism of that report? If not, why not everybody just embrace it and see if we can't implement it, starting with the focus on early childhood, but going all the way up to guaranteeing at least a first degree in the families. Can we all agree on that as a fundamental issue?
I think we can, and I think we should, because, and that is why I'm happy to see that the budget included funding to implement the recommendations in the Pattison report. It is
Yeah,
very important because we have had education transformation commissions before and then we haven't implemented. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So it is good to see that this time we're going to make the effort to do so. We
yeah,
definitely need to. But it's the confrontation again. It's the confrontation, Philip. But let's see what is going to happen. I think
yeah.
even having this Facebook Live, the funny thing about it is I sent it to my mother and I said, Mom, I'll be on this at 6 o'clock this evening. You should tune in. And the first thing she said to me, with Philip Palwell, PNP Philip Palwell, bad PNP Philip Palwell. I said, yes, yes. We're in a different space and time in Jamaica. And we
Yeah,
need to understand and accept that
yeah,
we're going to be different. But when you look at countries like Rwanda, their tribes fought against each other and it damaged that country for a long time. We don't have tribes. We have created our own with the PNP JLP. Let us not create that damage. Let us not foster that damage that can happen from tribalism.
before we come back to our internal situation, this was your first CPA conference, right?
Yes, yes, it was.
What are your thoughts about the conference?
I actually thought it was better than I expected.
Yes.
The question in my mind from the information learned, some of the information is not relevant to us because they had to deliver a seminar that related to so many different types of parliamentary systems across the world. But I made a lot of notes. That's the nerd in me coming out right there. And I am trying to think it through. How can we use some of these ideas that we learned to make our system better, allowing it to work for us? And secondly, that session we had about sports and trafficking, I
Right.
never thought about it before. I really didn't think about it before I started receiving the emails on it. But we're such a sports powerhouse globally. And if the issues around trafficking in and through sports, those are being dealt with in the other regions, eventually those fake agents are going to look to our region and we could have that problem. So it's also that awareness that you get around serious issues that need policy direction and need, real thought. I think the CPA brought those to
Yes,
our
well,
attention.
just one second, Natalie, because the chairman of my constituency is asking me, what does CPA means? So it is a Commonwealth
Commonwealth
Parliamentary
Parliamentary
Association,
Association.
and I should let you know that Natalie was pounced upon during the conference to actually chair a session dealing
Yes,
with human trafficking.
yes.
And that's a point you were making just now, Natalie, that you weren't aware of the severity
That
of
it was
this issue.
through sports and in
Yeah.
sports. I really wasn't aware of the severity of the issue. And I just think as a nation, we really have to start talking about it. And to be honest, I sit on the council for the UE Open Campus. And I did bring it up in our meeting on Friday
Yeah.
that maybe they need to start doing some research for our region, because we don't want to wait until it becomes a problem here. So in
I,
general, to answer your question, it was a great session. I learned a lot. I was exposed to a lot. So now it is for me to think about it
I
and
told
see what
somebody,
can be.
I told somebody that when I was getting up to speak, I asked you to be my timekeeper
Yes,
to keep me on the wraps.
yes, yes. We worked well together. The four of us that were there. I mean, even our having our pepper sauce so that people could taste a little bit of Jamaican, or including the Speaker of the House of Commons coming over and borrowing our pepper sauce. I think we worked very well, the four of us there in London for the few days.
Yeah. But one of the things that you and I discussed and we were so impressed with, and we said, listen, we have to get this to Jamaica, is the way things started on time. So,
Oh my
so the
gosh.
so the functions that we attended, whether it was at Westminster Abbey or they want to celebrate the 70th year of Commonwealth, they were punctual and the speeches were not too long.
Yes, it was precise. You got the messages, you got the information, but it wasn't this endless speaking. Everything was done on time and sharp. That's the word that came to my mind, sharp. And I really wish we could model that type of behavior. I really wish that would
the,
happen.
the session at Westminster Abbey. Now, this is the one of the most famous churches in the world. It was scheduled
Yes.
to last 1 hour. It was a celebration of Commonwealth Day. The
With
bishop
the royal
was,
family in attendance.
yes, the royal family in attendance. It
Yes.
was to last for 1 hour. We had so many presenters, but it started on time. Hundreds of people were in Westminster Abbey, and it ended on the dot. And the
Yes.
speeches, the sermon that was delivered was for 8 minutes. And that message was so powerful in 8 minutes. Why our speeches have to be so long?
Well, I was telling you, be careful how you're talking about sermons in Jamaica, because our pastors love to talk very low. I'm not sure who does it more, politicians or pastors. So I
Well,
think it's a
can I say something in that regard? I heard that the Prime
yes,
Minister spoke for more than 4 hours in Parliament.
yes, he did, but wasn't it amazing? It's
I
but
beg to disagree.
and it's okay. But can I tell you though that it's going to require a culture shift. A culture shift is what's going to be necessary if we want to do things differently.
Yes,
And any culture shift, because even the passing of the Sexual Harassment Act in both houses last year, that's going to require a culture shift when it comes into effect. So there are so many things we have to work on as a people and to how we do things. But
right.
nothing is bigger than Jamaicans to conquer. We're so mighty that if we put our minds to it and the leadership is there around it, we can get it done. But
An
we have to
important
really want
issue,
to get it done.
Natalie, has to do with women in
Yes,
politics, and
yes,
the support that ought to come from everybody. Sometimes
right.
people say that women don't support each other enough. And as was in one of the sessions where you said that you weren't speaking about your Jamaican colleagues who were present, but that men have to give greater support to women
Yeah,
in politics. You want to just talk a little
yes,
bit about that?
sure, certainly. You see, the patriarchy still controls the world. Let us face that reality. And for the patriarchy to survive as it has for generations, it means that women are not supposed to thrive more than we're thriving now. I mean, first, let me just say I'm proud of both political parties for having put forward more female candidates, the most ever in the history of Jamaica. And both houses of parliament now have more females than ever. But our male colleagues need to not see us as a threat in any way, but see us as partners. Because if, and I will say this, I say it anecdotally all the time, and probably I'm going to get in trouble for saying it, but what's Natalie if she doesn't get in a little bit of trouble from time to time? Look at some of the more successful leaders in Jamaica, public and private sector. They have a partner that's watching their backs. It doesn't apply to everybody, but in
Yes.
general, they have a
Yes.
partner watching their back because partnership is such an amazing thing. And so, really and truly, we need our fellow male politicians to recognize that we're not a threat and we're not trying. Yes, sometimes the way women speak about the issue,
Yes.
you'd think it's another form of confrontation, but it is not. All studies have shown that when women are allowed to thrive, societies, homes, organizations do much better.
Yeah, but one of the things that did come out of the conference, Natalie, is while acknowledging that um, the issue of gender is about male and female. And
Yes,
I think we are, one of the ladies who spoke acknowledged that in many of our societies, our young men are the ones now who seemingly are at risk.
it's a
And
question I asked, which they never answered.
it was you who asked the question.
Yes,
Yes,
it was
yes,
me
it
who
was
asked the
you.
question because I spoke about this in my State of the Nation address last year.
Yes,
Because in Jamaica, we're having a problem where we're moving forward with our female gender issues, but our men and our boys are at risk. And
yes,
it could be, there are many reasons. We have not done a thorough study as to why it's happening as much. We have anecdotal reasons, but we don't really know scientifically, factually.
right.
But the fact of the matter is, when you look at UA and UTech and all these institutions, their graduation rates for men are way lower than for women. You
Right.
know, and I keep saying my daughters will need husbands, guys. My daughters will need husbands. We have to protect our young men because they are at risk.
Yes.
And even the issue of fatherhood is an important one.
Right.
Daughters need their fathers, sons need their fathers. So
Yeah.
we don't have this cycle perpetuated over and over again. So
Right.
it is multi-pronged here in Jamaica. Our situation is different from the global situation. In some countries you have where women can't own property, women can't do this, drive, women can't do this, do that, etc. We have a multifaceted problem. We need to
Yeah.
be more inclusive with our women, but we also have to be mindful of the fact that our boys are right now at risk.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And you know there were some cute people who, when they saw our pictures together, they didn't understand. So I had to remark to them that she is the loving wife of a dear husband, and she talks about him all the while.
All the time.
So
All the time.
people should get any ideas.
No, and I'm gonna let's make sure he watches this live after. He can't know because his time difference, he's not able to watch live. But
Yes,
just so that he knows, hear what you're saying, that I'm always talking about him because he's my partner, he's my rock, he's my best friend, you know. I know that
absolutely.
sounds very cliche, but that's my Stephen right there. Have my
But
back all the time as much as I have his.
so while we were in London, there were other extracurricular things that were done. I went to
Right.
see a football game, Arsenal against Liverpool. Liverpool beat Arsenal. I can't
Yes.
say anything about who I supported because my sister's team is Arsenal, but I don't want Manchester City to win. so
Boy, I tell
bear
you,
that in
I tell
mind.
you.
But we did other things too. I went on my own to see this musical, stand up. What was it again?
I think it's Stand Up, Rise Up. I
Get
don't
up,
remember the
stand
name.
up.
Get Up,
Right.
Stand Up. Yes.
And I
And
had certain views about it, and I think you went afterwards. So let us
yes, I went with
compare
my
our
friends.
views. What are your thoughts on it?
First of all, I think it was amazing. It really should go to Broadway after this. Um, as a Jamaican, I felt proud. I sang right through. I can't sing to save my life. But let me tell you something. I was singing right through. I felt proud. I know there's controversy about whether or not Jamaicans should be playing some of these roles. But putting that aside, I think those who are in the play did a good job of representing us and our culture and the Malis and the whole concept behind it. So I just felt so good, and just this little island with so much of ourselves. And when I saw the majority, I don't know about the night you went, but the night I went, the majority of the persons there to watch the show were white.
Yeah.
By far the majority were white, and they were singing along songs by this Rasta man from a little island out in the Caribbean. It just warmed my heart. We're
But
such a powerful
I tell you,
people.
Natalie, I don't know if it's because I'm getting into my old age, but I got emotional.
Me too.
I felt at one time
Yes.
tears. there was this
Yes.
there was this white couple. The white lady, she was sitting beside me, and when she heard, well, they were very friendly, and I told them where I was from, and when the
Hmm.
music started to thump the place, she didn't turn to her husband to dance. No, it's me. She said, "Get up and
Yes.
dance." And
Yes.
it's not so easy to dance around white people.
No, no, it
But I
isn't.
tried my best.
Right. No, man, it gave a sense of pride. And I would say any Jamaicans who are in London and can go to the West End to see this show, it's absolutely worth it because it was magnificent. So
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
so awesome. And it was a break from all the more, cerebral work we were doing for the week. So just to get that night out. And I went with a fellow Jamaican. And it was just magnificent. Magnificent.
Yes, well, I also went to see Les Miserables.
You did? Oh,
I'm
yes,
a
yes,
theater
you did.
man. Yes, I love the theater. So if
Right.
I'm whether it is Broadway or West End in London, I have to. I miss my yard, so I have to do something,
Yes, yes,
and that is
yes.
certainly
I know what you mean.
something to do.
Right. No, man. I mean, and let me tell you, that is why I miss things in Jamaica. Our theater scene is not as developed, but that's fine. I miss going to plays. I miss going to pantomime. All of those things because it is so important. It feeds the soul, Philip. It feeds the soul.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're back home now, and we are struggling with these thoughts. We are trying to see how we can encourage greater working across the aisle to
Yes.
achieve united positions on issues without
Right.
regard to the political um, results, without regard to our support base. And it is my own view, as I mentioned before, that it is good politics
It
to,
is.
as an opposition, to show that you are patriotic. How are we? And you mentioned earlier about the problem with the winners take all, and
Mhm.
I'm sensing notions of proportional system. People ask me about whether we're talking about coalition. We're not talking about coalition, are we? What
I
is
don't
it?
know.
Yeah.
I think we have to explore it because on the bat of it, I would say, sure, a white people business that. That's to be honest, that was my initial thought. But we don't know unless we explore. And I think we have to explore and look at our cultural context and see what works. But as today, March 25th, 2022, I am not sure whether I'm talking about whether or not I think proportional or coalition will work best. I don't know. We have to spend some more. I have to spend some more time thinking about it.
And so our conversation will continue. And
Absolutely.
yes, and sharing across the aisle will have to continue. And I think
Yes.
what this program will do is to get people to understand that though we support different parties, we are one Jamaican. We are
Yes.
Jamaicans, and we
Yes,
really want to see the best for our country.
without doubt.
And to the extent that we can collaborate effectively and we can have a meeting of the minds, then we will be able to achieve better for our people.
Well, let me ask you this question, Philip.
Yeah.
In your mind, because you have been in the parliament for a long time, have you ever seen a motion brought by two members from opposite sides, either in the lower or upper side, upper house?
Mm, that's a tricky question. I can't recall.
I really need to ask the clerk about that because I think even doing things like that will help the cause.
Well, let us see how you and I can collaborate. One from the
Absolutely.
upper house and myself from the lower
Absolutely.
house.
Anything for Jamaica. She needs us all.
Well, those are really tremendous words, and I
Needs us
bless you
all.
for them. And I
No,
thank
man.
you.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you. And I know comrades don't understand these things, but we have to get over it and understand, try to understand why it is us as Jamaicans who are going to solve our country's problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what I'm proposing? Myself, you, and Natalie Nito. Let's go out for drinks one night. The Natalie's and Philip. And then
Ah,
we'll make the two Philips and the two Natalies.
yes, Philip Henrique is a good.
Felipe
Yeah,
Enriquez,
yes.
yes. So let's do
Ah,
that.
wonderful,
That's
wonderful.
good. So
Yes.
let's plan around that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, we keep our lives, some of these lives go on endlessly, but I try to keep
Yes,
them within 45 minutes so that, it's short and spicy, even though by
yes.
London standards, we're gone, we're doing
We've
very
gone far, long. No, man, but I'm happy to have come on this evening. And we said we were going to do this, and you have actually made it happen. So
well.
thank you for that. You're a
Bless
man
you.
of your word.
Enjoy your weekend. Give our regards to
Thanks.
your husband and family.
Will
And
do, and same to
continue
you and
to
yours.
continue to have this open mind.
Absolutely. All right, let's continue to work across the aisle to make Jamaica her best self.
Senator Natalie Campbell Rodriques, my dear
Thank you
friend.
so much.
I was about to
Yes.
say my dear friend and comrade, but
No, no, no. This labor right would just be paused. I'd be paused. I'd be like, what? No. But yes, thank
all
you
right, my
so
labor
much.
right
And to your
friend.
listeners, yes. All right, then. We'll talk soon, Philip.
All
All
the
right.
best
Bye
to
bye.
you. Thanks again. And as we say goodbye to Natalie, I want to thank you all for joining. I am indeed happy to be back. And next week, again, we're going to be thinking out of the box. We're going to be having very interesting discussions. I hope you'll find them so. We want to get back to talking to some of our young people. Yes, the future of this country is with our young, and not enough of them, I believe, are coming forward to share, but also to indicate the interest that we want them to have in national development, in service to their country, in politics. Nothing wrong with politics. It is what is going to get us out of our problems. It is what is going to enable us to mobilize our country for it to be a better place. Enjoy your weekend. I'm going to go back now to my stew peas and rice with pig steel. Next week I'm going to do some fasting so we can talk about that. But for now, it's stew peas and rice. Have a good weekend. Connection Boss, over and out.